Hello, my name's Chris and welcome to this latest video in the Obsequio series of data protection for real humans. So we're here today to talk about consent under the GDPR and the most pressing question, what is consent? So let's start there. What do we mean when we say the word consent? It's been bandied around a lot, especially in the last couple of years when talking about data protection, but do we know what it actually means? So when we're talking about consent, what we're talking about is permission. We're talking about getting someone's permission to do stuff with their data. We're always doing things in life that relies on people's permission or their consent. For example, you wouldn't take someone's car without their permission, or you wouldn't take someone's lunch without their permission. So it's no different in data protection. It's about taking, storing, using, or doing something with someone's data with their permission. Now, of course, you don't always need consent or permission in everyday life. Let's take the example of the police. They don't need your permission to arrest you if you've done something wrong because they're performing a public task. So it would be wrong for them to try and get your permission to do that. Another example is the HMRC. Unfortunately, they don't need your permission to tax you. That's because they have a legal obligation to do it. They have a legal obligation to tax you. So now we've thought about what the word means, let's have a think about what we need to do to get someone's consent. Now I'm going to use the example I gave a few seconds ago about the car. You wouldn't take someone's car without their consent. So let's imagine that you're the car owner. If someone came to you and says, "Can I take your car?" I'd be very surprised if you just came to an automatic yes. You wouldn't, would you? You'd want to know a bit more about it. You'd want to know why they needed the car, where they'll go with the car, who else will use the car, and maybe how long they'll need it. All of these questions are default questions that you'll think of when someone asks you a question like that. And again, this is no different when we're talking about consent under the GDPR. Instead of a car, we're talking about someone's data. So instead the questions become, why do you need my data? Where else will my data go? Who else will use my data? And how long will you need my data for? All of these questions are pivotal under the GDPR. If you don't give someone the information they need up front, then they can't make what's called an informed decision. No informed decision, no informed consent, and therefore any yes or no they give you won't stand up if it was tested in a court of law. So you need to make sure you've answered all those questions. What will you do with my data? How long will you keep it for? Up front and before the person makes a decision. Only then can they give you their informed consent. Let's think about what other considerations we need to make when it comes to consent under the GDPR. We're going to use that car example again because it works very nicely. So let's imagine now that you've answered all the questions. You've told the person, for example, what you're doing with the car, where you're taking it, who else is going to drive it, and how long you're keeping it for, and the person has agreed to let you have the car. Now let's remember, of course, that that car is not your car. You may well be using it at the time, but it is their car. And because it is their car, they can at any time turn around and say, actually, I'd quite like my car back now, please. That's the same as withdrawing their consent. It's someone saying, I've changed my mind for whatever reason it might be, and I don't want you to have my data anymore. I don't want you to process my data under that reason anymore. As a data controller, it is your responsibility to listen to their wishes and act accordingly. It's your responsibility to stop using the car and give it back. It's your responsibility to stop using their data and give it back to them. Remember, at the end of the day, the car is not yours. The car is theirs. They have lent it to you for a particular reason and for a specific amount of time. It is your responsibility, while you have the car, to make sure it's secure and to treat it respectfully. Now this is exactly the same as data under the GDPR. You may hold the data, but it is their data and you have it temporarily for a certain reason and for a certain time period. While you have their data, it is your responsibility to make sure it is secure and to treat it respectfully. So I hope that gives you a brief insight into consent under GDPR. My name's Chris Richardson, and if you want to reach out to me, then my LinkedIn profile is below, and our website is obsequiosoftware.com. I look forward to seeing you on the next mini video.